Frank Corrado, former Vancouver Canuck TSN hockey analyst. Frankie's been digging in on junior hockey for TSN over the last few years. How you doing, my dude?
I'm good, boys. Yeah, it was exciting last night with the new look prospects game, right? Like we had the top CHL players playing against the U.S. National Team Development Program, and really, the reason why we're doing this, it's not because we want to see the top prospects. It's not because we want to see CHL versus the U.S. team. It's because that when all these players turn pro and they get under the same roof playing for the same team, there will be rivalries that take place, and it's the CHL players versus the NCAA players with everything we do. You want to scrimmage after practice? Okay, CHL versus NCAA.
No kidding, really?
Yeah.
You want to do like, are we on the road? We're playing basketball one day. CHL versus NCAA. Is it a night on the town and we might play a little beer pong? CHL versus NCAA. So we're just getting a head start on all that stuff now.
Absolutely. We'll play the credit card game at dinner, CHL versus NCAA on who gets to pay. And Frank and I were texting last night. Be prepared for another parade of giants to the draft podium in June. There are some big boys in this year's draft class and in the first round. We're going to get to one of them later in the interview, but first I got to get your take on the Canucks 2-0 win in Boston against the Bruins. And Frank, all they do is win on the road. 8-1, baby.
I love it. Just simple game. Well, it also helps when your goaltender steals the show. Like, I think that's got to be the biggest takeaway from that whole night is how well Lankinen played. And of course, you go back. What a shrewd, proactive move bringing him in, realizing that you're going to need someone because you don't know when Demko is going to be back, and you didn't want to put so much trust and responsibility in Shilovs. Like, they've been proven right on this so many times now. But that's one where it had the Demko effect, whereas like he won you the game, like he stole you the game, and I think you couldn't ask for that. Like I think it was going to be unreasonable to like ask for it often in the early goings of the season before Demko came back, but to get it on the road on a night like that against the Bruins that are looking to push through what they've gone through and have the new coach. I don't know what more you can ask for a guy that you signed, basically right before the season for less than $1 million. Like that's honestly, you keep getting bang for your buck.
I had forgotten what a fully sealed net looks like. Like he's played really well this season. Demko's had some really good nights in the last couple of years too. Honestly, I'll put that performance up against anything Demko's given in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Like, nothing was going to get past him. Odd man rushes. Rick Tucker brought up the lateral movement of just following the play, and that looked like it was going to be. They looked like they were going to be A+ scoring chances. He ends up taking them in the crest because he saw it all coming. It's unbelievable to watch.
It's funny, it's funny that you mentioned that. Like, he just ends up taking the shots in the crest. Like leading up to this top prospects game, I was reaching out to a couple like goalie people I knew in the CHL, OHL, and I was just asking about a couple of the guys. And the thing that you forget about when you're a player or you're watching the game is oftentimes the best goalies are the smartest goalies. Like they're the guys who read the play similar to like the players can, right? Like you can talk about athleticism and technique and, here's my percentages, let's play the high percentage. And it's like, if you also read the game well as a goalie, like that's something that just doesn't get talked about enough. And I think, to your point, like Lankinen last night, it just looked like he was a half step ahead of what was going to happen with the puck in front of him. And, of course, like steals the show. And you're right. Like anytime you just kind of get the feeling watching those kinds of performances in net, you're like, there's nothing going in unless it's like something really sour that happens in front of him where he's got no chance. And, that didn't happen. And I thought that was, it just brings me back to what a smart, proactive move it is bringing in that guy, and you picked the right guy to bring in.
Tell us about Jake DeBrusk. You would have played against him. So far, we know he's a really great interview, a fantastic talker on the game of hockey, and a streaky scorer. But round that out. Tell us more about Jake DeBrusk.
See, I don't think I ever played against him, but Watched him a lot over the years just because Toronto and Boston seem to play in the playoffs all the time. Streaky scorer. I think his best years in the NHL are going to come as a Vancouver Canuck. And obviously they would be banking on that, and that's why you give him the term and the money, and maybe that's me just stating the obvious, but there's more than what he was able to output with Boston. And I think there was times there where maybe him and Cassidy weren't seeing eye to eye, and that's hard. Like, that puts a lot of strain on you as a player, and there's no reason why now he shouldn't be able to play a little more free, and embrace what that entails. But I think there's a drive to him when he's on his game, when he's at his best, feet moving to the front of the net. Like, it's direct. And I think that's, what we've seen from him more recently, where, you go back to the Ottawa game, where is he? In front of the net, scoring. Last night against Boston, where is he? In front of the net. Like, I think he's got the frame, and he's just got to kind of wrap his head around, I'm going to have to hang out in an area of the ice where I'm going to get slashed, cross-checked, although it, to a lesser degree than maybe you would have in the past, but it's going to be somewhat unpleasant. But if I do this and really stick to it, night after night, I will have better results than if I'm just kind of, taking some shots from the outside or trying to look for, quiet areas of the ice. Like, there shouldn't be a lot of quiet about his game. Like, it should be.
Sounds like the Brock
Boeser be in the
lesson.
abrasive areas of the ice.
It sounds like what Brock Boeser learned how to do. Like, we thought Brock Boeser was going to be an in-space shooter, and Brock Boeser has learned to go to the high traffic areas and tip pucks and pick up rebounds and that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know that he can be a 40-goal scorer like Boeser, but he could learn something by watching him, perhaps.
He could be a third. Like, I think 30 goals is well within.
He said 30
reach.
as a mark, right? Like, that's his goal going in. We had that conversation in preseason. Speaking of Boeser, so he doesn't have JT Miller there as a centerman, and of course things are going so well with DeBrusk, Pettersson, and Sherwood. They're not screwing with that line right now. So playing with Teddy Blueger, playing with Danton Heinen, different players, needless to say, than what he's accustomed to playing with. Usually more high skill. What do you want to see from Boeser? How does Boeser adapt his game to his line mates with Miller out?
Well, I think the biggest thing now is if you don't have Miller with you, you've got to be a little more of an engine. Like, you have to be a little more of a self-starter. And, like someone like Blueger, I'm not going to say, yes, limited with, playmaking ability. It's just he's not a second-line center. Like, he doesn't have that. He's a very useful player when he's slotted correctly. But ideally, if Teddy Blueger is on your line and Danton Heinen is on your line, those are the guys that go get you the puck. I think sometimes the centerman, is not freed up to do that unless they really are, thinking it one step ahead. Like someone like JT Miller, like, he can go get it because he's that good. I think with Blueger, okay, if he's in the middle of the ice now, his game might slow down a little bit more, so he's in the right positions, and so I think that leaves Boeser to have to do maybe a little more of the legwork, and that takes him out of, that would take you out of that soft shooting spot that maybe you like to find. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he adapts, but it's a very different look and feel than what he would have with JT Miller. And, it might have to be a situation where, you're not going to get the clean looks that you want to get, and you have to be a little more of a go-get-it type guy and see if you can, kind of funnel some stuff. Like, I think it's just not going to be the cleaner looks. It's going to have to be, okay, let's go get it, let's funnel it, let's crash down and see if we can get something that way. It's just, if you don't have that skill, like, I just don't know how you're going to get the puck in nice, clean areas in the offensive zone.
8 straight wins on the road. How much do you think the guys are talking about that? How much do they want to keep that streak going? Like, that game versus the Bruins was not a Mona Lisa, and yet they just found a way. But does that mean this streak is on the end here, or do you think it doesn't matter how? Can you put forth a beautiful effort here tonight after what you saw last night?
You could put forth a good effort, and it doesn't mean that, okay, because it's like hanging on a string, like it's going to end. It's hard. Like, it's hard winning on the road. in the NHL. It really is. And, especially with the back-to-backs and the way the Canucks go on the road is different than the way a lot of other teams go on the road. Like the Canucks go on the road, they'll knock off 7 games in 14, 15 days. Like Eastern Conference teams don't have to do that. Like that's not how they operate. And the Canucks, they have to. So that's why I think, of course, you always have to make the most of your home stands. And we know how the last one went for the Canucks. Obviously, you didn't optimize that. But to make up some ground, make up for that with success on the road, I think I hate the old saying. I don't know how you guys feel. I hate the old saying, we just played more simple on the road. Like, why not just play simple at home too? Like, what are you trying to impress the fans? It makes no sense because no one talks about that kind of stuff. No one says like, oh, tonight, yeah, we're at home, so I'm going to do something a little more fancy to impress the fans. No, you're not.
Remember, guys, flashy stuff tonight. Let's be
right?
flashy.
Like, and no one even thinks that way. So I think it's just like it's such a it's the lazy, low-hanging fruit narrative that we tell ourselves, but like no one's ever thought that way or said that out loud. So I don't know, I really don't know. The only thing that I could say is that when you get on the road, it's just there's one task at hand and that's it. You're doing the road games. You go to the morning skate as a team on the bus, meal together on the bus, we'll go play the game, next city, boom, you're gone. It's like maybe just having that one singular focus on the road helps this group right now when you're at home, you're trying to catch up on this and that, and there's so much going on. Like just that one simple task at hand, that might just be what's helping them play better on the road.
Remember, boys, some good flashy drop passes in the neutral zone tonight. All right, let's go get them.
So
Coach likes.
Yeah.
Brannstrom didn't play a lot last night. 13 minutes and 6 seconds. He was a full 5.5 minutes fewer than the next defenseman. Is that just good tactics in what is a really tight, really ugly playoff-style one-goal game on the road, or do you read something a little more into Brannstrom's usage? And to be fair, there was a bunch of special teams time in the third, and he doesn't kill penalties.
Have you seen the size of Boston and their lineup? They're massive. Like they're the heaviest team in the league. Like I think their average weight as a team is like just under 210 pounds. They are a big, massive group. So Brannstrom is not that kind of guy. And in a game like last night where there is a lot of special teams and there is a lot of, bigger guys that can lean on you, I think that's always been the, part of what has held him back, from not really being, called for what he was. Like in Ottawa, he was a third pair guy that was, sometimes out of the lineup and then, kind of cast away from Colorado. Now he's been found money in Vancouver because they needed someone who can move the puck. But there's the thing that has essentially held him back a little bit is that when it's big and it's, they're leaning on you, that's where he can struggle a little bit. So I don't look at that and say like, oh, I'm not sure about Erik Brannstrom now. No, I think you know exactly what Erik Brannstrom is, what he does well, where his deficiencies lie. Like that shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone. That's just not the kind of game that he's made for. And hopefully you don't have a lot of those, right? Like you play against Edmonton, you're not having those big mutants kind of leaning on you all night. It's just it's a different kind of game.
He's in high ice time on the weekend. He had a season high too. So
it's just a different kind of game you have to play against. Yeah.
The Canucks won a game with 15 shots last night. It is 2 off the franchise record for fewest shots in a win. Frank, through 2 periods last night, they had 9 shots on goal. That's with 2 power plays. They didn't have a single high danger chance. They didn't have a single shot from the middle of the ice. They're now averaging 27 shots a game. It's 28th in the league. The only teams worse are Montreal, Detroit, Chicago, Utah. And in fact, there's not even a playoff team in that orbit. You have to go all the way up to Tampa at 20th in the league, a full shot a game better than the Canucks to find a playoff team currently on a playoff spot, shooting the puck so infrequently. We know he likes quality shots. We know he views possession as sort of a defensive tactic. Is it sustainable? Can you win at the highest levels playing this way?
Yes and no. Like, can I say yes and no? Yes, you can win by trying to generate more quality chances over quantity chances. But I think if you look at the lineup right now, you probably have to ask yourself, okay, who's facilitating so we could have a large volume of chances? Like, how are we doing that? As much as Pettersson has played really well of late, that line didn't have the puck a lot last night. In fact, the puck was kind of jammed into their throats a lot last night. So when your number one center doesn't have it a lot, now you're asking more of Bluger and Suter and all the other guys to say, can you guys drive the puck towards the other team's net? And the answer is more often than not going to be no. Like, you're going to have nights where, other lines have a good night, and that's great. But like, I don't think it's a matter of last night or, in general. We just, we didn't want to waste one. No, if you had the puck long enough or to have enough chances to waste one, you would have had more shot attempts. So I think that's the one, question that I would raise with the group right now is just, is there a lot of, driving of the puck to the opposition net in order to say, okay, we want to create quality, but we also do want some quantity. It's just, there's not both right now, and the reason why there's not both is because you don't have the pieces down the middle to have both. And we'll see when JT Miller is back and what that looks like. And I know this has been an issue when Miller was in the lineup too, but like that's kind of the, like, you might not have the ability to generate a lot, so you hope that what you do generate is of quality.
Before you go, clarify this top prospects game for me.
Yeah.
It's 6-1 CHL. They run roughshod. As they shouldn't they? This is an all-star team from across the CHL of any nationality of player as long as they play in the CHL versus only Americans from the USHL and NCAA? I mean, they should romp. Why is this fair?
No, okay, so it's the program. Like, this is the U.S. program. This
right.
would be the best under 18.
It's not against the Canada program, though. It's against anybody in the CHL, right?
Right, but theoretically, you would say that all the players who are playing at the program are the best players in the United States of America at that age, unless some guys have opted to say, no thanks, but no thanks, U.S. program. I'm going to play in Youngstown, Ohio in the USHL. Like, in theory, Blake, this is a program that, on any given year, you would have had, go back a few years, you would have had Caulfield, Boldy, York, Turcotte, Zegras all on this team. Like, this is just a down year for the U.S. where, they only have 2 A-rated prospects playing on that team. Well, in like the CHL has 15 A-rated, and the best player for the U.S. In the country is James Higgins, who's not available because he's aged out of the program, so he's playing at Boston College. But I think if you go back and look at this under 18 team over the years and look at some of the names, you'd be like, okay, this is going to be great. This is going to be highly competitive. It's just an off year. It's an off year for that program. So I think that's. What was going to win out last night? Was it going to be the super high-end talent of CHL or the fact that the U.S. team plays, they've played together for a year and a half and they have a lot of continuity, and obviously the talent really won out. And, like, there's probably 6 players on the CHL side that are going to go in the top 10 in this upcoming draft. Like, it's that stacked on the CHL side, and it's that down of a year for the U.S. side. You put that together, and you get a 6-1 CHL win.
And one of the kids who played for the CHL last night and figures to be a first-round draft pick in June, and we haven't had a lot of these guys, at least not from Canada, is North Vancouver's Joshua Ravensbergen, born on the North Shore, played for the Vancouver AAA, Vancouver Northwest Hawks, and now with the Prince George Cougars, where he unseated Ty Young, Canucks draft pick as a starter, had an enormous playoffs, and at 6'5" is going to be a first-round pick in June. Tell us a little bit about Ravensbergen.
So, like, last night, it wasn't an overly busy night for him, but he made 2 key saves that lead directly to goals for Canada. Like, quick transition right off the save, boom, they score a goal. I'm like, hey, look at that. Like that's got to be a nice feeling if you're the goalie. And then there were a couple other chances where I think one was on the power play. U.S. gets the puck in the slot, and you can see, okay, is he going to go out and challenge that and be super aggressive? And if he does so, I think the U.S. player is just going to like pump fake him, go around him, and put it into a wide open net. And what I saw from him was he didn't be overly aggressive. He kind of just like got to his spot in the net, didn't come out and challenge too much, stood his ground, made the save. And I was like, oh, I guess he's a pretty good skater for a goalie. If he's, if he really trusts himself that he didn't have to, start doing the desperation over challenge and things like that. So, yeah, it was a good night for him. It obviously wasn't an overly busy night, but the saves that lead directly to goals, and then just the trust in yourself that you don't have to overcompensate. Those are the two things that kind of stuck out to me in my non-professional goalie analysis assessment.
Oh, it's professional enough, Frank. You scored on many a goaltenders. You protected many a goaltenders over your years. And in fact, next week, I think when we do the hit, we're going to talk about a goalie you go back very far with, in Jordan Binnington, after we hear about, as we get closer to Four Nations face-off roster selections. Until then, thank you, Frank.
Thanks, boys.
Be well.